It's level 18, my little underground. I'm Peter A. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Peter A Radio, and follow the show too at MLU Pod, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can subscribe anywhere, all podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, and my guest today, Soft Center, has a brand new album, No Pattern, and they're sitting right here, right in front of me. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Anytime. I know you guys have roots in Jersey. Is that right?
We do, yes.
We do.
So what are some common misconceptions about Jersey? Because I'm a New Yorker, and a lot of New Yorkers are very about Jersey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, well, you probably have a few in your back pocket.
Well, the first thing that I think of is that we're much more similar than you'd think.
That's a good one.
It's like people, I think, the way I think of New Yorkers who think of New Jersey is that they think it's like this complete foreign planet. And it's sort of like, if you were to cross over the river, you would just be like totally lost and it would be weird. And it's just like a lot of it's kind of the same as what you'd get in an outer borough or in Long Island. It's kind of the same thing. It's just on that side.
Well, I kind of feel like, every time I drive through Staten Island, I'm like, how is this New York City, but like Jersey City or Hoboken is not New York City? Because that doesn't make sense. Because
Staten Island's like the forgotten borough almost.
Yeah.
You know,
but I
no
mean, like, if
disrespect to
they
anybody
get
from there.
status, then
Yeah.
why do we not get status? Is kind of how I
Exactly.
feel.
Well, you guys are your own state. So, you know what I mean? If that makes any sense.
know.
Because whenever there's like a big thing happening at the MetLife, it's always New York, New Jersey. But it's not New York, New Jersey. It's New Jersey. But
Yep.
it's so close enough to the city. I think some people might like, no, it's not New Jersey. It's not New York. It's Jersey.
Yep.
And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when people say, at least when I say, like, Queens and Brooklyn are part of Long Island, literally. You know, it's,
Yeah.
it's
People
almost
have a
like,
hard time with that.
Yes, exactly.
It's a mental block
It
more
is.
than anything else, I
Yeah.
think. But I do want to rep for like a few positive New Jersey attributes.
Okay, let's hear it.
So diners, I do believe we have the world's best diners in New Jersey.
I'll fight you on that
the-
one. Long
the-
Island's got the crazy good ones.
I mean, maybe, you know what? I would even say maybe comparable. Like probably to your point, Sean, there's a lot of similarities.
There's a lot of similarities.
We have very good pizza.
Yep.
We come correct with bagels. We're like, I think there's some. I mean, not again. I still rep for Jersey. I haven't lived there in a while, but like I definitely still have like love in my heart for it. And we have some very good artists that have come out of New Jersey.
That's
Yes, you
true.
do. Soft Center.
Bruce Springsteen, Patti Smith,
Lauryn
Bon
Hill.
Jovi. No, not
Screaming
Bon Jovi.
Females.
Screaming Females.
Yep. But if you just took what you just said, Gina, and isolate it, you describe Long Island.
Yeah.
Bagels,
Yeah.
pizza, diner.
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's I mean you've got like New York in the middle and then you got the same thing on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Truly.
I feel like we're set up to kind of like hate each other, but there's like no
Yes.
reason really.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. I have family in Jersey. I have some friends in Jersey, so I have no beef against Jersey. And I can't speak to New York.
I think the negatives are shared too. Like I went to this park, like I've some, family in Long Island and we went to some park and it was kind of like you were just like the view at the top of the hill was like of a landfill. And I'm like, okay.
What park was this?
I honestly don't know. He lives out in Freeport, so it was somewhere in that zone.
Yeah, I'm
But,
around that area too.
And so it was like, I'm not complaining. I live near a landfill in New Jersey. There are ugly parts, but there's also a lot of beauty in both, in all of these places. So
Yes,
I
yes.
don't know.
What'd you guys listen to on the way in?
What was I? I was actually, I was listening to my friend swearing a little bit. What else was I listening to?
I was listening to a podcast.
What podcast?
So I was starting to listen to the new season of Startup. I don't know if you ever listened to that podcast.
No.
It's good. It's interesting. Like they profile different like businesses that are starting up, or like the last season they did churches, like people who are starting churches.
It's like an audio HGTV.
Yeah, it's definitely like one of the more highly produced podcasts that are. Yeah, I mean, I guess it has I think it's got maybe a little more style than that. But yeah, I hear that.
I listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts.
Nice.
Wrestling podcast.
Yes, I'm a big wrestling fan.
Okay.
I do sometimes talk wrestling on this podcast. A lot of wrestling and music stuff. I don't know why. Well, I guess I'm just a fan, but that's like most, because there's a lot of wrestling and music podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. There's a lot of stuff on that. But yeah, but usually when I, on the way in, I was listening to this band, Leopard Print Taser. Forgot the name exactly. I could find it. But anyway, I don't want to get the band name wrong, but who else was I listening to? I forgot. I wanted to listen to the new Soft Center, but I wanted to save it for later. I'm like, I listened to it on the way back. So you guys on your album No Pattern, you worked with Scott Hull and Bayo Swanson. Am I saying that right?
Bo Sorensen. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and they worked with like Tune Yards and Nirvana and stuff like that. How'd you guys work? How'd you build that relationship?
It kind of came out in a few sort of just like happy coincidences. So Gina and I were already planning to work at Tiny Telephone Oakland, which is John Vanderslice's studio, and Bo is like a fixture there. He's there all the time, and one of the other musicians that I work with is Mike Kroll, who worked with Bo in the past. So it was just kind of, there was already a little bit of a setup there, and so when we got the studio time booked, JV was just sort of like, hey, Bo, you want to work with these guys? Or I don't know. It just kind of came up in a sort of way.
Didn't you guys stop by? You were on tour with Mike and you stopped by the studio to say hi to folks.
Exactly.
Was Bo there then?
And that was, Bo was there. And that was when I met JV. And that was actually when I met Bo too for the first time. And then I guess it just sort of fell into place kind of in a weird way.
Where's the studio?
It's in Oakland, California, like very close to Emeryville, if you know that area at all, right on the bay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really cool studio. Like it's all analog. You can do everything to tape. John Vanderslice, I think, is kind of known in the area as like a guy who is good to equipment, and so he has a lot of really interesting equipment, including the Grateful Dead's plate reverb, which is like a really weird thing to have. And
is that where you did this album?
Yeah, that's where we did it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everything, the recording, mixing, and wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Gina, I know you said you were in a songwriting rut when you were writing this album.
Yeah.
How did you get out of it?
I kind of gave myself a writing assignment to write about the early aughts. And that was great, actually. Like it yielded a lot of, it kind of felt like there was a lot that happened during that time that maybe was better to like look at in hindsight and not to focus on at the time it was happening. So that was really cool. It was definitely a good experience to kind of like revisit. And I also like to write where like I'll start with the kernel of truth or like something that happened, and then I try to like let myself fictionalize a lot because I feel like it just makes for a better story and gives you a little more leeway with lyrics, rhyming, and things like that.
Makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, but that was sort of the assignment I gave myself, and I think I would like to try to write more that way in the future. I had this band in college called the Dumb and Ugly Club.
Great name.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally.
And we had a similar situation where we put a first EP out, and then we were kind of like, what are we gonna do next? And we gave ourselves a writing assignment, which was pretty off the wall. We decided to write a concept album about a fictional war that happened in 1967 in an alternate dimension that was fought on Mars.
Now this is the way to go. This is
So
how
we
you do
like
every Soft Center album.
we fully like really went into a crazy world, and it was great because we were kind of like, well, we want it to sound a little 60s, but it's also kind of sci-fi and we can like kind of dive into the people in this world and like what all their experiences are. And so I feel like I spent a lot of time writing kind of, I think a lot of artists feel this way when your life is like kind of in peril or things are like going bad. It's pretty easy to write stuff because you're just like, oh, I got to work through this shit, like I gotta kind of sort it out and move on, and like it can be sort of therapeutic in that way. But I feel like there's something about kind of having those parameters to work in that can create something a little less raw and like more considered. So I'm excited about doing more of that kind of stuff. Who knows what the next one will be about.
So when we talk about the early aughts, right, in society, that was kind of a terrible time, 9/11. So for you guys, at least for this album, you went back to the aughts. What in your life was happening at that moment that inspired you to write and get you out of this creative rut?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was kind of a little bit more focused on the time, like, I guess maybe the mid-aughts is really where I was putting most of my focus for this album. And for me, that was like, 2005 to 2010-ish, I would say. And like, it was a time of a fair amount of upheaval in my personal life. And also it was just like, I was kind of making bad decisions. And so it was good to sort of revisit that with a little bit of distance. 2008 in particular was like a horrible year, as you may remember, for both society and also for me personally. So
First black president, but like economic.
Yeah,
You know?
it was
Yeah.
really, it was like pretty scary to be, to feel like one of the bedrocks of society, which was like, for better or worse, our financial system was like maybe not such a bedrock,
You were coming out of college?
I
around this
was,
point?
I had been out of college for like a couple of years at that point.
Oh, that's the worst time.
Yeah. And
Oh
you're
my
like,
God.
you're kind of in a weird transition moment anyway, where you're like, what am I doing? And so I feel like the juxtaposition of that year was really interesting because it was kind of like, personally, I was like, fuck it, I'm having fun. It's a party. But also it just felt like dark. And then there was like the election, which was bright. It was a bright spot, but
Layoffs everywhere.
yeah, it was just like a lot. It kind of felt like a crisis moment. And I don't know. How did you feel in 2008?
It impacted, I feel like, everything around me more than it impacted me directly. Like, it did affect things for me work-wise a little bit, but like, I feel like, so like my dad's company, like they were scaling back, and like you just heard that from everyone, like whether it was your friends or your friend's family, just like the world kind of crashed a little bit, and everyone was talking about how they lost so much, and it was, it wasn't good.
I know, it was just very, I just remembered I was in high school, just hearing, layoffs here, layoffs there. I had a teacher, this was like 2007, who got laid off. So I was seeing it firsthand. Like, I didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
But it, like, looking back, it's like, wow, that was not a great time for this country. But I want to talk about specifically Loose Ends on No Pattern. It's about relationships that kind of should have stayed. Friendships, is that kind of scratching the surface or what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I can't be alone in feeling that there are some people that you probably shouldn't date. Like, you just get along great, and like when you date, it's kind of ruins everything. And so yeah, it's really about like wishing that you could still have that friendship after you crashed and burned in your relationship that you shouldn't have had.
Has that happened in your lives where you've had relationships that were, but like, were you able to get that? You weren't able to get that friendship back, or
no? Yeah,
really?
No. Yeah, I mean, I think it's on more of like a meta level, it's a little bit of just like the thing we were talking about earlier. It seemed like a good idea at the time, right? Like, you can't go back and undo it. That moment where you feel like a glass of water is like you put it just on the edge of something a little too much and it falls, and you go to dive to catch it and you can't. And you're like, I saw it happening and there was like nothing I could do. Like, that's sort of in a nutshell what I was trying to write about there.
Oh, I saw you naked already.
We can't go back.
We can't just like play PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, I saw you naked, meaning like not just literally I saw you naked, but like I saw you. Like, I like know who you are fully, and that's raw.
Yeah, that's. I think that's the difference between the ones where you can go back to being friends and the ones where you can't. Is like, if you saw them and you didn't like what you saw, then it's done.
Yeah.
Damn, but that's like the risk of like getting into a relationship.
That is the risk.
Or maybe you do actually really like what you saw, but like it's too, like the intimacy is too much. Like it overwhelms the thing that could have been a nice friendship, you know?
But most people say before you date, make sure you're friends first. But then it's like when you are friends and then it doesn't work, you can't go back to being friends.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Sometimes
maybe
you
you
can.
can.
I think
Yeah.
sometimes you can.
Yeah.
Right.
I just
Exactly.
think it really depends on the situation.
Yeah.
And there are those times where you maybe wish you could and you can't.
You can't. Yeah.
Right. Leopard Print Taser. That was the band.
That's a good name for a band.
It's
Yeah,
a great
yeah.
name for a band.
Yeah.
And they're a really good band too. They kind of remind me of like early Yeah Yeahs from like their
that's
first
cool.
EP, first album.
Yeah.
Gina, I know you recently had a baby. Congrats
Thank you.
on motherhood. So how do you balance band life, baby life, and real life
I
as
don't
a
know.
whole?
Sean should give me a grade.
Oh my God. Gina gets like the highest marks. I am constantly amazed by the fact that like you can do any of the things that you do. Like I've seen,
Thanks, Sean. That's nice. That's a really nice thing to say.
No, it's genuine. It's like, I mean, I don't have kids. I have a cat, and that to me is a lot. Like cats are like not even dogs. They're like the easiest. And to me, I'm like, oh my God, how do people have kids? And so like the fact that you do any of the things that you do is very impressive to me. But Gina does it all to a high level, and I give her as good as marks as you can get.
That's very sweet. I feel like I do a lot of stuff poorly. Like that's like the feeling I have. It's like, and I think like probably we both shared this feeling a little bit with, you know, anytime you're like out on a creative endeavor, you see all the ways that you could like dedicate yourself to it fully. You're like, oh, if I didn't have to have a job, or like if I wasn't caring for this adorable baby, like I would just like hunker down and I would send all these emails and I would do all the promotion that I need to do, and I would like book all these shows and I would get our record where it needs to go, and I guess
Then you're binge watching Black Mirror on Netflix.
yeah, well, I mean, and
Yeah.
that's sort of like the other thing about it. You're like, how much of this would I actually do,
Right,
and how much
exactly.
of this is like a fiction that I have that I, you know, tell myself. But yeah, I don't know. I think it is easy to feel like you're when you have a kid, especially, and when you have a job, especially, like you're kind of like, oh my God, am I doing any of these things well, or am I just like doing them as much as I can and then moving on to the next thing, you know?
This is probably the right time. Because we were talking about before, you kind of timed it out right.
Yeah, we did time it out. Like I was telling Peter about how,
Yeah.
you know, we were like, okay, well, the due date is this day. Like, how can we get in the studio? I mean, we were in the studio pretty under the wire, I think.
We were.
He was due early March, and we were in the studio
Tail end
in
of January.
tail end of January.
Yeah, last few days of January.
Yeah. So
Of last year. This
Of
January.
2018.
of
Right.
2018.
Okay.
That was
yeah.
when we did the last part of the recording. The first part was done in 2017.
Yeah.
So now that the album's out, I guess correct me if I'm wrong, the hard part is done. Is
The
that
fun
right?
part's
The
done.
fun part is done.
Oh, and now the hard work begins because are you thinking about a tour?
We've done a few shows. We probably will have a few more shows. We're gonna probably keep it pretty local, just because of the nature of our lives right
Of
now.
course.
Yeah. We do have a show coming up, opening for Swearin', on
when?
the 7th of December.
Okay, where
in
at?
Jersey City at Monty Hall at FMU.
Which is very easy to get to for New Yorkers.
Yeah,
I'll just throw that one
the
out
path,
there.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay,
Jersey,
okay.
it could be its own borough.
Path. You could even use your Metro card.
Yeah, literally.
Literally.
Yeah.
Swipe. That's it. You're
and
right
it's
there.
one stop. You just
Oh, yeah?
take one stop from if you're at World Trade Center, you it's like a 5-minute ride.
Okay.
Yeah.
So easy.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Closer than so many parts of Brooklyn.
'Cause I knew a lot of bands that were playing there, and I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
Jersey. I'm
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
oh, I gotta go through the tunnel.
Screaming Females
Like,
will do a couple nights there.
Yeah.
A lot of good bands come through there.
and that's where like FMU throws a lot of
Yeah.
their stuff out.
Yeah,
there,
it's
which
their
is
live
cool.
space actually.
yeah.
Dope. That's so dope. And so now, is there a moment where okay, we have to rehearse for this show, but wait, my baby needs me? Is there ever that?
I mean, yeah, luckily I have a very supportive and wonderful partner who is actually really excited about this project and has always been like a really amazing support for me and has, told me that it's important for me to like keep doing music stuff. So she's been amazing in terms of like enabling this to happen. And when we're rehearsing, usually he's with her, which is good. So yeah, and she's like an actor, so we kind of trade off a little bit, and a director. So when she's directing something or acting in something, I'll take him, and when I'm doing music stuff, she'll take him, and it all works out.
Yeah, that's a partnership in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's how you keep the wheels moving.
Yeah,
and you're in a band too. That's another relationship in and of itself.
Yeah.
And you guys grew up together, so you guys kind of like know each other's kinks and how each other works. So I think that kind of helps with your chemistry, no?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Makes it.
So how often do you guys like rehearse or practice?
I mean, we've played a couple shows as soft center, and the other thing is, Sean and I did everything in the studio together, pretty much just ourselves. We had our friend Emily Bate came in and did some vocals, but because of that, we had to like build out a live band. And so there was a little bit of a process. Luckily, all those folks are also people who've known each other a long time and played together for a long time. But there was a little bit of a process of figuring out how we were going to do live shows and kind of filling out the sound of the record. So we've rehearsed just a handful of times for those shows that we've played so far. I mean, really just one dedicated rehearsal, and then we've had a few
Some
run-throughs here and there. But I think it's a testament to the fact that it's like everybody does know each other well and like has played together before, so you can get it to gel pretty quickly.
How many people are playing with you guys?
It's 5 total, Sean and I, and then Sean's brother John is an amazing drummer, and he's been playing the drums for us. And then Emily Bate, who came in and helped us do some vocals in the studio, is doing background vocals, but she's also playing guitar and keys. And then our friend Carl Sturck is playing bass, another dude we've played with for a long time. So, yeah.
So, No Pattern was crowdfunded, Kickstarter.
It was, yeah.
So I know this is probably like, it's so difficult to, to get that out and to get people to fund your stuff as a band no one's ever heard of. So how did you guys kind of work through this?
I mean, I think like going back to your previous question about like the work versus, the fun stuff, like Sean and I really love being in the studio. We love the process of demoing out the songs. We love the process of being in the studio with Bo and like working on the actual recordings and doing the mixes. And that's the stuff that I think is our favorite thing. And like sort of, I mean, if we're being totally honest, our like least favorite things are like promotion and the logistics of fulfilling Kickstarter rewards and the logistics of booking shows and stuff like that. So not that we know all that stuff has to be done and like we're game to do it, but the Kickstarter I think was like kind of challenging for that reason for both of us. Because you just feel like a jerk when you're like, hey,
give us money
to
make music.
And luckily, I mean, the upside of it, the positive is that like people responded so kindly and sincerely to the project. Like it really blew us away how much support we had from not just our communities, but like a wider listening audience that seemed to be interested in helping us get it out there. So that was really like the positive part of it.
So some of your initial supporters, I'm assuming, were family and friends.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. But like actually Kickstarter picked us up pretty early and featured us, and I think that really helped us.
Wow, that's cool.
And we also, Sean works on a podcast.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sean does some editing on a poker podcast.
Okay.
And they actually use a bunch of our previous band's songs as like their soundtrack, kind of.
Yeah, they have a little music at the beginning and end of each episode. And then like when they're changing segments during an episode, there'll be like, 15 seconds of this song or that song. And it just happened when I took over the job as editor that they didn't really give me all of the materials needed to publish an episode with their old music. So in a pinch, they were like, yeah, just use something you've got. And I used our old stuff. And then they really liked it. And a lot of their listeners have been like, hey, what's this band? And so we did promote our Kickstarter through their show a little bit too, just to kind of say, hey, if you've been enjoying this music, there's a new project by the same people,
We have
That's amazing.
Yeah, we have this like
Yeah,
awesome.
it's very special.
We have this awesome like subset of fans that are like poker nerds, which
Yeah.
is really just really great. Like it's been a good combo.
Mm-hmm.
My brother, who raps and produces as Smiley, he does the intro and outro music for My Little Underground.
Nice.
So I think that's a good way to get his stuff out there. It's good to like help each other.
Yeah.
In that kind of sense, people that are determined, not just somebody who just has music, like someone who actually wants it. Who wants to do what you guys do, like put in that work.
Yeah.
So what were some of the rewards for your Kickstarter campaign?
Well, we had the vinyl record, which was sort of the main reward. And then we also made these stickers, which were like actually a synthy sticker. Right?
We had like the
Oh no, we did the tape deck. That's what we ended up
kicked
with
around
doing.
some ideas, but we ended up, since it was an all analog thing, and we were kind of like talking about that a lot as part of what made the project special to us and sort of special in general. Our good friend Shane Michael Vidari, who's an illustrator, did sort of a cool little drawing of a analog tape deck, like reel to reel kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so we had a sticker put out like that. What else was there? I guess there was
a lot of digital music. And then we actually haven't made these yet, but we are going to make some prints.
Derek,
yeah. So Derek Bradley is the artist who did all the art for our record, and
that needs to be a T-shirt. The cover
honestly,
to no pattern.
we really
Fantastic.
should make that into a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we should talk to him about that. But yeah, so he's got some things in the works that we are gonna do a risograph print of as part of the rewards as well. And then we actually do have we had a house show reward, which not many people took us up on, but we got one of those in the works. So yeah.
Where did you end up doing this house show?
We haven't done it yet, but it's
okay.
going to be in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So, what are some of the things that you've learned from doing a Kickstarter?
It's a good question.
That's a good question. I guess I've learned that it's challenging. Like when you see people doing it, I have a little more of an understanding of where they're coming from now. It made me a lot quicker to support a friend's record that I probably would have supported anyway, but I was just like, oh yeah, I know where you're coming from, and let's do this and make a contribution there. And I guess I also just feel like one of the things I learned from a sort of just technical perspective of what do you have to do if you want to have a successful one is I think the one-on-one, just reaching out to a person and just being like, hey, I just want to let you know, this thing's going on. This is what it's about. We're asking for help. And just kind of, because you can post about it every day on Facebook or Instagram or wherever. And a lot of people still might not see it, or just might not it might not catch their eye, even if it's going in their feed. But if you kind of, take a few moments and reach out to someone who might be interested in, then I feel like that's a really good thing to just get into the process of doing a Kickstarter, is just to reaching out.
Yeah, I feel like there's also something to bringing people along and helping people feel included in it. We talked about it a lot as, really talking about how special we felt the recordings were and the process of recording, and hoping that people could find something to sort of resonate with there around going into a studio and making something, maybe not looking at a computer screen for a little while, or giving yourself time to be creative. And I think we tried to we wanted people to feel like they were kind of part of our team a little bit, because we really did think about them that way. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's a big part of having a successful Kickstarter too, is just being okay, these are not my funders or like my backers, but like these are like my people who are like helping me do this. If that makes any sense, I don't know.
So how would you bring that kind of intimacy to someone who is supporting to you? Like how would you, like when you reach out to an individual person, it's like a friend of yours, oh, I'm making an album, think about donating. If not, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And also, like, if I'm reaching out to someone, you know, everyone's into different stuff. Like, some people are lyrics people, and I'm gonna, you know, like, obviously Gina's got a gift in lyrics, so it's like easy to be like, hey, we got something here that might appeal to you. And again, like you said, feel free. It's not like, it's very low pressure. It's not like I was really hounding people, but like someone else, it might be like, oh, you know, I know that they love things that have like these kinds of sounds on them. So I'll like, instead of just reaching out to everybody, just think like, well, who do I know who likes the kinds of things that we're doing here?
Yeah.
You know?
We also had a really, we have a friend named Pat Byrne, and he put a record out, and he gave us a lot of tips, which were all very, very good. And one of the tips he gave us was just like, think about the artists you know or the people you know who you respect, whose work you love, who might be a little bit more established than you, and just like ask them for their thoughts, you know, ask them for whatever advice they have. You know, we had a few of those folks give us like quotes for the record. So just from like a pure tactical promotional strategy kind of situation, like that was really, really good advice for us, and has ended up being a pretty important thing to do. Yeah.
This album was completely funded through Kickstarter.
It was partially funded through
Okay.
Kickstarter. Yeah, we've funded it ourselves quite a bit still as well, but it definitely took you know, the edge off of the funding, which was good. It's expensive to make a vinyl record.
Yeah, that was what
independently.
it funded the whole, like, everything that went into the vinyl side of things. Was like, that's a big bill because there's a lot of steps in the process. You know, just making the records themselves isn't all of it. You know, like you mentioned Scott Hull earlier, who did a great job of, you know, he's an engineer, a mastering engineer with like decades of experience cutting records, which is something that, like, yeah, there's still people who are younger who do that, but you know, he comes from kind of a time when that was the world of music, was just like everything was on vinyl. And so we wanted to kind of do it right and have somebody experienced do that. So I would say that the vinyl side of the project was completely covered by the crowdfunding.
So as musicians, you guys are fans of music. I hope so. I would hope so.
Yeah, I would say I'm a fan
Very
of music.
much.
So
Yeah.
how do you guys support artists now?
That's a good question. I buy a lot of vinyl personally, because, and I try to buy things at shows as much as possible. But I think that, you know, we're at a point now where it's hard to make money on the actual selling of the records part. Folks make money on sync licensing, you know, ads in movies and TV, and maybe on tour if you are a certain kind of act, and through merch on tour. So I definitely, like, I think I put most of my support in buying actual vinyl. And also I just like listening that way too. So it's a win-win. And
That's one thing New York, New Jersey has. New York and Long Island have record stores.
Yeah.
We got tons and tons of great record stores. I
really
just
do.
bought Thriller for $3. Yeah, at a record shop on the island, and I bought a 7-inch of Nirvana demos from Nevermind.
Oh, nice.
That's cool.
Like,
That's
those are the
cool.
cool things.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool
Yeah,
little
that's
hidden gems
awesome.
there. Yeah, so
There's a lot of copies of Thriller floating around this world.
Yeah,
it sounds amazing.
But it
It
still sounds
does.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I mean, also, like, supporting folks on Bandcamp is a great thing to do. Not something I do as much, but, like, definitely something I'll do from time to time. Or I feel like I had another example, too.
I think also just like sharing music
Oh,
with
yeah,
friends.
for
Just be
sure.
like, hey, I'm listening to this, you know, or what are you listening to? Just kind of like going back and forth with people in various parts of your social circles, and just kind of like, you know, whether it's a band that's very established or somebody that's new, like, or listening to like we were talking about WFMU earlier, and I'll find a lot of bands that I hadn't been aware of through there. So like I guess just like that matters too in terms of supporting, like obviously everything that Gina mentioned with like supporting going to shows and buying stuff and all that stuff. But I think just making sure you're checking stuff out and listening to things. And for me, it's easy at times because there's a lot of music that I know and love that I'll just listen to over and over again. But like making sure that I'm also listening to some new things too.
Yeah, the personal recommendation thing is key. I mean,
we were talking about that
we
earlier.
were talking about that earlier. Yeah, it's just like you can totally get a lot of great recommendations algorithmically on the internet, and there's nothing wrong with that per se, but I do find a lot of extra value in people telling me what they like and why they like it. Like I feel like that's the thing that's missing, right? Like you can get a recommendation of something that's just going to pop up next after the album you're listening to on Spotify ends or whatever. But if you tell me like you should check out this band because like they sound a little bit like this band in a way, or like they have great lyrics, or they're doing something like I've completely different that I've like never heard before, then I feel like I have like naturally like more of a connection. And I just like, I think that's like special. And the thing about, I don't know, I think that's the thing about like the pre all digital era that I really like is like the idea that, you used to like pass a mixtape to your friend and then you'd put that mixtape on and maybe you'd know like half the bands on it, and then the other half you'd be like, I never heard of this before. And then that can open you up to a whole nother set of things that, I don't know, that part's special. Like it's feels
very special.
Yeah,
because
it's
when I'm
magic.
in a car with friends and something's playing on the radio or CD, whatever, who is this? Oh, it's this person. Gotta check them out.
Yeah.
Then you probably become a fan.
Yeah.
Or going to a show and staying for the opening acts.
Yeah.
That's what I do a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes that's a risk because a lot of bands
Yeah.
suck, right? A lot of opening bands are terrible, but not all the time.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of great, like if you go to a basement show,
Yeah.
stay for some of the other ones because you
Yeah.
never know what you might find.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the best ways to discover music. Actually going to a show, go to shows, get out there, see the music before you can purchase it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's like a little bit nerdy, but I think like, Sean and I are like a little older than you, and we have memories of, or I certainly have memories of like going to a record store and getting some, I mean, it was all CD then, but like picking up a CD and then like opening up the booklet and being like, oh, this was produced by X person. I should go to try to find more things produced by this person because I really liked how this sounded. And okay, well, that exposes you to like bands you never knew about before, and you get like nerdy in the way that you find individual people and you're like, this person drummed on this thing, let me try to get this thing, and it can really expand your musical world in a way that's like surprising and fun.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But you know what's interesting about that? Because I buy CDs from bands I want to support, and I know it's expensive to do this, but I get angry when I buy the CD and I open it up. It's just the cover and the disc. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
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 I understand it's expensive to get all that stuff, but it's like,
You need the information.
come
though.
on,
Yeah.
put some work in. If I'm buying the thing, I want to buy the music,
Yeah.
but I want something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They give out Grammys for packaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's, if you're going to put out physical music, make sure you take some time into it, you know?
Yeah, definitely. The object is part of it.
Absolutely. So how long have you guys been friends?
A very long time.
Yeah, very long time.
I mean, I would say we became friends in high school, but we knew each other since like first grade or something
Really?
crazy like
Yeah.
that. Like
That's nuts.
We went to the
Yeah.
same grade school.
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that's special to have, friends that you've had since like literally day one. I think it's amazing. I think that's kind of like, I'm not going to say it's a lost art, but I feel like a lot, at least in my life, I see people that, I made this friend. I'm really best friends with this person I just met in college, but then after you graduate, you're not best friends anymore. And then some people that have their best friends since like first grade, kindergarten,
Yeah.
day one.
Yeah.
That's something amazing.
Yeah.
I love that because I never had a lot of friends, but I have my people, like my few people that I've had since like elementary school.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. So what kind of started your musical relationship?
How do we? I mean, so
We weren't playing music together right away, but we were
Yeah.
both doing our own things musically.
yep.
And then
We were going to a lot of shows together, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
and we were hanging out together. And then
Yeah.
eventually it just kind of started happening. Honestly, we would probably just like sit around like playing songs like really casually just with friends.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
and that was kind of the first music we did together. It wasn't even like a band or originals. We were just like whatever we were into, we would just like, you know, play some songs. And then
Yeah.
we would play shows together a bit just because it was like we were local.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point it just got to the point where you were like, you know, I guess you started doing some, you know, recordings that were just Gina all by herself. But you were like, hey, you know, my brother is a drummer, like we were talking about. And if you wanted some drums, sometimes you hit him up. Yeah. So it was like he got involved, and then eventually I got involved, and that was kind of because you were doing like everything yourself on a lot of those early records.
Yeah, I mean, I would say when we were like 15 or 16, we really just went to like a ton of shows together. And like at that time, New Jersey had a really solid little punk scene, and we were pretty involved in that, and all of our friends were involved in that world as well. And then. Yeah, I was like experimenting with home recording in like a very naive way. Like I didn't know anything about what I was doing at all, and like I would do very strange like hacks basically to try to like overdub things, and just like I was really like, it was very hit or miss. Like sometimes it would just be awful and sometimes it would be cool. And then I remember like I think one of the first things we really did together like a little bit more professionally is I got invited to play as an opener for this this improv show that used to be in the basement of a theater in Montclair, and I think we put a little group together. It was like you and me and John.
I forgot about that.
I think it was just us three, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah, and so we played a show, and then like when we respectively like went off to college, I was kind of involved in a couple other. I did like some solo stuff, and I was in that band Dumb and Ugly Club, and but we always kind of kept it, you know, playing together.
Yeah,
going.
when we'd be in the same place, there usually like a show would happen somehow, like one way or another.
Because we liked playing together, like we just like clicked, and it was fun, and you know,
it's like we might as well do it.
We spent a lot of time playing in Sean's parents' basement, and then we like formed our like a pretty formalized band called Palmyra, which was active in that early aughts moment for a number of years. And so, yeah, we've kind of been like, once we started playing together, we just kept playing together in like various incarnations.
Did you guys have like a similar music taste?
We have like a lot of overlap, but I would say also very different. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, it's definitely like a Venn diagram with like a lot of overlap. But Sean's like quite a jazz aficionado, and I am not.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So remember to vote. We have election day in the rear view. So how important was the midterm elections to you guys?
I mean,
very important.
Very important. Yeah. And I feel pretty good about what happened.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think everyone was super optimistic and hoping for like a miracle, and I don't know that we like got a miracle, but we got something pretty good. And just having Democrats in control of the House is a pretty big relief to me. Like it feels like this is such a nerdy analogy, but a few years ago, a couple of friends of mine got me into the game Bridge, which is like a straight up old grandma game, but it's also like a really thinky game, and it's fun to play. And there's this situation where if you play it, if you end up in this certain kind of setup, you can just like dominate the board, and they say like you have to have a stopper, which means you have to have like a high card of every suit in order to stop somebody from just like taking all the tricks. And it felt like a situation in which we did not have a stopper. Like dude could just go do any crazy shit he wanted, and because he had control of the House and the Senate, like he could just like get it through. And now it feels like we have a stopper. Like we could at least stop the most heinous stuff from happening, which isn't the best, but it is kind of a relief, you know.
But that's all you can hope for. Because people put the presidential election as like the most important. I guess to most Americans it is, but really the midterms are the other people, the Senate and that is where the president can't do anything without them.
Yeah.
So
That's where shit gets
this
done.
is so important. I'm so glad a lot of people. I think it was a record turnout for young voters too.
Yes,
I don't know the
Which
exact
is
stats.
encouraging.
Yes, it is.
I think it's so awesome. So Remember to Vote was about voting specifically. You're telling people to go vote or no?
Well, I mean, Remember to Vote, the song is like not really. I mean, it's about voting in that like you choose how to spend your power, right? And like whether that's with a vote, with like a vote that as we think about it on election day, or whether that's like how you spend your money, or whether that's like how you show up for things, or how you think about society. It's sort of I guess my message there was like, you are in control of how you approach these things, and it's bad to just kind of like sleepwalk through any aspect of that. I think is sort of my summation of it. Yeah.
So basically, make a choice.
Make a choice,
no matter what it may be.
Have some intention.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a choice is better than no choice.
Yeah. Well, what you're making when you make no choice, you're making a choice too.
Oh. Well, yeah, that's true. We can go way deep into that conundrum there.
Yeah.
So East Jesus, and this song is kind of like what we were talking about before about kind of creating some abstract narrative, like that war you invented in the 60s.
Yep.
Was East Jesus your visualization or nightmare about the apocalypse?
So, okay. East Jesus is a real place.
Okay.
East Jesus, and like, definitely worth checking out if you are interested in the weirdness of America. So East Jesus is an artist community out in the desert, very close to the Salton Sea, which is in Southern California. And it's sort of a part of this area called Slab City. Have you ever heard of Slab City?
Nope.
So basically there used to be this, I believe it was a Navy base, or no, I guess it was an Army base. It was this big base, military base, out in the desert, and it got decommissioned. And what was left were these big concrete slabs. And because it is an ex-military base, there wasn't really a town there. There's no services or anything like that. But people started to like drive trailers out there or bring tents out there, and they actually set up this community that they call the last free place in America. It has no services. There's no water. There's no electricity. Everything is off the grid. And it's a really weird mix of people. There's like a lot of veterans there. There's a lot of people who are older, who want to like save money, who go out there in the winter months because it's so hot. And then there are folks who live there year round. And there's a few artist communities out there too, but it's just like this crazy feeling place because it's insanely hot. I went there to visit a couple years ago in March, and you know, it's in the way over hundreds out there. You are parched, and it feels nuts to think about people living out there with like no running water. But people do it because they feel like they don't really want to be part of America anymore, and they don't know what else to do. Or they want to like build this like intentional community out in the desert. It's a real mix of people out there.
So how do you get water to survive?
You drive to the town where there's like a gas station, and you buy your water.
Okay. So how far out?
It's like about maybe like a 15-20 minute drive to this gas station. So
That's not terrible.
It's not terrible, but like,
What about a supermarket? Is there
I think there might be one in that town. Yeah, I mean, there's a town that's like not too far away.
Oh, that's fine.
But it does feel like it's a kind of an intense, lawless feeling place. Like there's no police, there's no fire department, There's nothing. Like, it's just people living in the desert.
What's the murder rate out there?
I have no idea, but
No one's counting.
No one's counting. No one's there to count.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, and like, not to say that it didn't feel like dangerous, but it feels fringy. And the other crazy thing is, and like, I don't know how to describe this to you on a podcast, but there is, as you enter Slab City, this guy who was clearly like a little bit insane, but also extremely talented, created this thing called Salvation Mountain, which is these hills made of sand covered in paint. And they're gigantic. Like, this is like an enormous like art installation, essentially. And it's all about Jesus. And it's like really intensely religious, but also it feels just like really weird and interesting. And
Kind of like a cathedral. It's
kind
very
of like a
awe-inspiring.
cathedral. Yes,
you know?
it's very awe-inspiring. Like, I would encourage you to like look it up after this and see some pictures of it.
I would definitely. I'm very intrigued.
Crazy.
Wow.
But the whole like being out there, I mean, whatever. I've been on like, now I've gone on a very long tangent about East Jesus, but being out there is just like a very surreal feeling. And I wanted to kind of capture the sort of like end of the world vibes that you feel out there, which is just like, I don't have there's nothing left for me in this country. I went somewhere else to like try to do it more the way I wanted to do it. And it's kind of scary, and like there's part of it that might be a little bit isolating or depressing, but there's also something kind of joyous about being like, you know what? Fuck that. Like, fuck all the shit that's happening out there. Like, I'm doing this thing over here. So yeah, it's definitely like an end of the world apocalyptic song. But it is referencing that very real, super interesting place.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something else. It's kind of like Burning Man to the extreme, almost, right?
It way predates Burning Man. Like, yeah, it is I think there's like a documentary out there about it if you want to learn more.
There's some stuff out there.
I'll check it out.
That you can like see footage.
I'm very intrigued.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. It's almost like that's what freedom is, whatever that means to you. Being free. You know, there's a lot that's good with that and bad with that.
There's both. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. And it's hard. Like, it seems like hard living, you know? Like, it's not easy to live in the middle of the desert without running water.
Of course.
But also, yeah, there's something really special. Like, the people in Slab City have created their own library. And you can go in there, and it's like a structure that has a bunch of books that anyone can borrow. And that's pretty inspirational. Like, that's a cool thing. So, I don't know. That whole area is really, really wild. Like, the Salton Sea is its own crazy, toxic.
Do you think that area will like get some sort of attention and become gentrified? Do you think? No?
Nope.
It's hard living.
When I think about like artist communes and communities, I think of now like with Brooklyn, like with artists doing something over here, and then it gets some sort of buzz, and here comes this rich investor that wants to be a part of it, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And it just kind of gets turned into like this like corporate machine, and it's just all of what was cool about this is not cool anymore. It's just kind of just another thing to make money off of.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like the circumstances there, I mean, I feel like the whole reason that certain people have set up an artist presence there is that like it is safe. Like,
yeah, it's so in the middle of nowhere, and like if it's way over 100, there's so many people that never are going to want to be there for more than 5 minutes.
Right.
That's keeping it safe. It's like protected.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what about wildlife?
Well, I mean, this like it's a desert, so yeah. There's there's the wildlife you get in a desert, which are like weird lizards and tortoises and things like that. But yeah, I mean, the Salton Sea is like its own crazy. That's right nearby, and it's its own crazy story. It's the largest inland body of water in California, but it was basically like created by an accident where a canal overflowed its banks and it filled up this giant like geological sink in the desert, and everyone was kind of like, oh wow, cool, we made a lake, let's build a bunch of like cool buildings and like go water skiing
Let's make it a resort.
And over time, everyone realized that this was a horrible idea because runoff from the agriculture nearby would end up in it, and then the lake started to evaporate, and it just became saltier and saltier and grosser to the point where now only tilapia can live in it. Everything else just instantly dies. So it's the whole area is super weird because it's got like all these sort of 60s kind of resorty like places that are all just like completely boarded up, ghost towns all around, because it's just super unpleasant.
This is like the summer of
now.
'69, but like to the most extreme.
It's a really wild
Not
situation
69,
out there.
67. Summer of Love.
Yeah, 60. Wait, 69?
Was it 69, 67?
We're terrible. We're showing our ignorance.
Yeah, right, exactly. So what are some of your favorite albums of the year so far?
I mean, I personally am currently obsessed with Fred Thomas's Aftering, or have been for like many months. It's such a
very
good record.
good, yeah.
And he put out a trilogy. The first one's called All Are Saved, the second one's called Changer, and the third one's called Aftering, and like they are so perfect together and like so thoughtful and well constructed. I've been really into those.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of music is this?
It's indie rock.
Mm-hmm.
Fred is a dude who I know from a long time ago from the Ann Arbor music scene, which is where I went to school. And he's just, I feel like one of those people who his music is so good. He's such a fantastic songwriter. He's really, really amazing lyricist. And like has just been plugging along for a really, really long time and is still just totally underrated. Like it's like he's more under the radar than I think he should be, given his talent and his stamina in the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 2018 has been a crazy year for music. I've been listening to Ty Seagal's latest album, Freedom's Goblin, a whole lot. I work out to it in the gym.
Nice.
I think Cardi B's album was one of the most entertaining albums of the year. Oh my God. Polar opposite, I know.
But I like Cardi B.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, she's grossly entertaining. And I've been listening to this girl from Staten Island, Abby Jasmine, recently. Oh my God. The charisma on this girl is out the window. Yeah, we can do a whole nother thing about the best albums of 2018 so far.
I like
Headrest.
that Boy Genius EP.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Lucy Dawkins is very talented, but when I was listening to it, I'm like, I'm kind of bored. You know, I don't know. Like some of the songs are kind of like how they're put together is like the production of it is kind of cool, but I just didn't feel any kind of spark like from it. You know, like music can be loud and tender and still be interesting and energetic, if you know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
You know, but again, Lucy Dawkins is very, very talented, but I just didn't feel anything with the Boy Genius thing. Carsey Headrest was good. Courtney Barnett, her album was
I mean,
very
she's
good.
always tremendous. I'm a huge fan of her.
Yes.
Yeah. You've been listening to, you've been like loving that Swearin' record, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
No Pattern is the album. Soft Center, thank you guys so much for a very interesting conversation. So where can people reach out to you guys?
So we are on all the social media except for Twitter. We're not on Twitter. We just don't have we just don't have the stomach for it. But Instagram, Facebook, we're up on Bandcamp. You can hear us on SoundCloud, on Apple Music, on Spotify. What am I missing?
Tidal.
Yeah, we're up there. Am I missing anything else?
There's other
MySpace.
ones. I'm sure if
MySpace.
you use one of the other ones, then you know what you use.
LimeWire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Download us on LimeWire.
Yes, illegally. Pirate Bay.
Well, thanks so much for having us.
Yes,
Oh,
seriously.
man.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you
was
so
a
much.
delight.
Fun, guys. It's been level 18 of My Little Underground. I'm Peter A. Subscribe all podcast platforms. Hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Peter A Radio and follow the show at MLU Pod on Twitter and Instagram. I'll see you guys level 19. We're almost there. Almost a year old. All right. I'm out.